antivirals and to set up police.
To get new power grabs that governments can do on a transnational, international basis, where the World Health Organization is more credible now in the UN because they're somehow or other the authorities. I don't see that the UN is going to protect Americans, not when the border's wide open and it's clear that the disease is, the hypothesis is the disease comes from Mexico and it's transmitted person to person, and yet the border is kept wide open. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Well, Doc, let's expand on...
There's got to be another explanation, Alex.
Absolutely. Well, Doc, I mean, take the UN. You know how it works. For those that don't know how it works, the UN has this General Assembly that really doesn't have the power. And then you have the G8 within it that really do have the power. But then different subunits of the UN structure, like the World Health Organization, is quasi-private. And if you go research it, most of its funding is Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. They're eugenicists. They're globalists. They're population reductionist, climate change, pushers of this new religion. And they brag it's a new religion. They say the public needs one. So when you look at the WHO now being the central commander, this is really the private foundations and the NGOs, private corporations, using the UN as their mechanism.
Well, there's no doubt that the UN is right at the center of this, and it's a power grab on behalf of the UN. The UN is probably the last organization in the world I'd want to be involved if there really were a worldwide health epidemic, because the UN would not necessarily make any decisions that would be in favor of protecting health of Americans. The perspective of the UN is worldwide, and it has its own agenda, which is to grab power.
Absolutely.
I don't see that the UN has ever made decisions within these various organizations where the primary interest is U.S. national security or U.S. economic or health security.
All right, Doc, stay there. Final segment with Dr. Jerome Corsi, writes for WorldNetDaily.com. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. Dr. Corsi, a hot-button issue with you because you've been attacked in national media by President Obama just for even coming on this wicked radio show and talking about the facts that sometimes governments do stage events or allow events to take place like the Gulf of Tonkin and things. We've now had a bunch of mainstream talk show hosts, including Michael Savage. We've had Alan Keyes come out, and we can play the clips, saying they're concerned Obama will stage a terror attack or some type of other disaster. Ron Paul has said that here on the show. In case you haven't heard Michael Savage, let me just play a clip of this right now. Here's Michael Savage about a month ago.
Now I'll make another prediction. I predict that very soon Obama will create a crisis along the lines of the Reichstag fire. I don't know what form it will take, but I believe that once the minions are seen for what they are, Rahm Emanuel and his gang will set off a Reichstag fire in this country of some kind, and they will recall the military dictatorship of Lincoln and Stanton during the Civil War when civilian suspects were arrested without warrant. I will tell you as I sit here, I fear that every night as I go to sleep. I put nothing past these agitators who have suddenly seized...
All right, let's stop right there. I mean, if you look at the military buildup, the police state, all of this, I mean, the federal reports that came out, Dr. Corsi, saying the number one threat are veterans and gun owners, that we're terrorists, and the whole Homeland Security system was built for American patriots. What do you think about what Savage and others are saying?
Well, it's a very frightening scenario, and what I know is that the military apparatus, the emergency powers of the presidency through these Homeland Security and National Security directives that President Bush put in place, now all available to President Obama, give an unprecedented level of authority for the U.S. military to be involved in domestic emergencies. And what this recent swine flu, I think, hysteria proves is that the American people will accept any level of government control and military involvement if the people are scared into thinking there's a health threat of a major proportion. Now, that we could get this far, this much news, this much attention, this much shutdown of society, when there's been no illness at all, indicates to me that this has been a politically contrived hysteria, that there's no basis for it in the medical reality.
But
and yet very few people are holding the Obama administration to task for saying why all the alarmism when in fact the reality was that this disease was inconsequential.
Also, Doctor, there's a lot of blaming the American people that got upset and scared instead of the administration and the World Health Organization. You don't blame the people when you yell fire in a theater and they get up and start running out. You blame the guy that yelled fire, don't you?
Well, absolutely. And the hysteria that was created, President Obama coming on television, repeatedly discussing this in nationally televised press conferences, making an issue with Janet Napolitano, coming out with repeated press conferences, nationally televised. I mean, there has to be a basis of thousands of people sick and dying before any of this hysteria is in any way proportionate to the government's out-of-control response. And the government needs to be held accountable for this. And the government says, oh, well, we need to press the alarm button. No, just pressing the alarm button to show that it can produce a compliant population ready to submit to government and military authority is not justification enough for scaring this many people, scaring the entire population of the United States, and demonstrating that no one would object even when the border was kept wide open, which makes no sense whatsoever. So, you know, if the powers that be want to see that the American people are already conditioned to accept martial law and continental or international control of a health emergency, this scare over swine flu proves the case.
Absolutely. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you so much for joining us. Got a new book coming out soon. Look forward to having you on about that, sir.
The America for Sale. It will be out in October.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Corsi.
Waging